You must have seen people saving the world with their special powers. But just think if someone gets broken in the pride of his powers and starts killing people blindly. Something similar happens in today's story. In the beginning of the story, we see a married couple named Kyle and Tori. They were trying for a child for a long time, but nothing was happening. Then suddenly, Tori's attention went to a voice from outside. In a few moments, something came from the sky and crashed, causing everything to start moving. After that, the story jumps ahead a few years where Tori is playing with Brandon. There, the teacher asked Brandon a question in school, and when he answered, a girl in the class smiled at him. At night, while painting at home, Tori's attention went to Brandon, who was unknowingly looking for the spaceship from which he came to this Earth. He had locked the spaceship in his garage, and Brandon was trying to reach it. Tori went to him and calmed him down. The next day, Kyle gave Brandon the job of cutting the grass in the garden. Brandon started trying to start the grass, cutting machine, and in the meantime, as soon as he pulled the machine, it fell very far. He couldn't believe his power. How did he throw such a heavy machine so far? But then he went to it and put his hand in the fan of the machine without thinking. The shocking thing was that he did not get hurt at all. On the contrary, the iron fan was crooked. Today was Brandon's birthday. So he went to dinner with his family, along with his Uncle Noah and Aunt Merle. Noah gave Brandon a gun as a gift, but his father Kyle refused, saying that Brandon is still young and it's not right for him. However, Brandon insisted on taking the gift. Kyle picked him up in the middle of the meal and left him there, while the waitress looked at him with a strange look. The next day, Brandon was not responding to his father Kyle's words. When Kyle went to him, he saw that Brandon was chewing on an iron thorn without damaging his teeth. Such talent is needed in Colgate's ad. After this, Kyle took him on a hunt and explained to him in words, "Look, son, your youth is bursting, so there must be a lot of changes in the body. We know that too. We are also men. You must be a man. Anyone who knows the changes in his body is a different child." That night, Brandon was secretly keeping an eye on his classmate, Caitlin. Caitlin was listening to songs on her laptop in her room. As soon as she turned off the laptop, she felt that Brandon was standing outside the window, keeping an eye on her. She was very scared, and her mother quickly came to her room after hearing her voice. They saw that it was none other than the waitress from the same restaurant. She asked Caitlin about everything and went near the window. But by then, Brandon had run away from there. Tori and Noah were looking for Brandon, and after a while, they found him. The next day, Tori talked to Brandon's teacher about him. Brandon was making a strange drawing in his book. When Tori asked about the drawing, Brandon hid his copy and avoided the conversation. At night, Brandon was quietly standing and watching the chickens. Kyle came and asked him if he was okay. After a while, Tori and Kyle saw that someone had killed all the chickens. Tori thought that this work must have been done by a wolf, but Kyle was sure that Brandon was responsible because he was looking at these chickens in a very strange way a while ago. The next day, Brandon's entire class was playing a game where everyone had to save a child from falling. Caitlin was still very scared from the incident of the previous night. So when Brandon bent towards Caitlin, he did not save her, and she fell straight down. Instead of helping Brandon, Caitlin said in front of everyone that he was very strange. However, the teacher apologized to Brandon and asked him to help Caitlin up. But Brandon was still very angry with her. So when Caitlin extended her hand to pick him up, he used his powers and broke her hand. Later, he was taken to the principal's office, where Caitlin's mother and Tori had a heated argument. Caitlin's mother even asked for Brandon's arrest, but the police dismissed it, considering him a small child. Brandon was sitting there, listening to all this. That night, when Tori and Kyle were talking about Brandon's changed behavior, Tori heard Brandon's voice. She went to check, and saw Brandon flying near the spaceship. As soon as she reached him, Brandon fell down and injured his hand. It was the first time he had been hurt today because he had never been hurt by anything before. Tori went down and tried to calm him down, but Brandon had figured out that Tori is not his mother and that he actually came from the sky in the spaceship. He accused Tori of cheating him and left. Caitlin was in her room when Brandon went to meet her. However, Caitlin made it clear that her mother had strictly forbidden her from talking to Brandon. Brandon replied that he would solve this problem and left her with flowers. Caitlin's mother was preparing to close the restaurant when she saw a strange mark on the glass that looked like a drawing made by Brandon. Then the restaurant lights started turning on and off, and suddenly the glass broke, going straight into her eyes. She was unable to see anything clearly but understood that someone was there. She grabbed a baseball bat to defend herself and started spinning in the air. However, Brandon was moving too fast, so he didn't pay attention to the baseball bat. Caitlin's mother quickly reached another room to save her life and closed the door. But Brandon used his laser to cut through the iron door and brutally killed Caitlin's mother. The next day, the sheriff arrived to investigate the murder of Caitlin's mother. He also noticed a strange drawing made by Brandon on the window. At school, Brandon's Aunt Merle tried to talk to him as a counselor, but he didn't respond. Merle mentioned that she would have to talk to his mother about this. Kyle also started to realize that his son is not human, but a beast. How could anyone break someone's hand just by holding it? Merle was busy with her housework when suddenly the lights started turning on and off. She went to the door and saw that Brandon had come to meet her. Brandon threatened her, saying that if she doesn't talk to his mother, it will be good for everyone. But Merle got angry and told him to go home and close the door. She thought he must have gone home as he said, but Brandon was looking at Merle from the window. After that, he quietly entered the house, but after a while, his uncle came home and saw him in the closet. He got very angry because of this act and started taking Brandon home in the car. He said he would tell everything to his mother about this and grabbed Brandon, forcing him to sit in the car. However, Brandon used the power of his eyes to lift Noah and hit him on the garage door. Noah then ran away from there in his car. But on the way, he noticed that Brandon was following his truck. Suddenly, the truck malfunctioned and lost balance. Noah saw that Brandon was standing in front of the truck. Brandon was flying in the air and slammed the truck hard onto the ground. Noah's jaw broke with the strong impact. He was taking his last breath, and Brandon made a mark on the ground with his blood. Brandon told his family that he had been playing football all the time. He claimed that some kids had disturbed him and tore his t-shirt. That night, Kyle remembered the time when Tori first discovered Brandon. She thought it was a gift from God and decided to adopt him. However, as soon as Kyle removed the cloth from Brandon's eyes, his eyes burned red. Kyle got scared and fell asleep. Later, Merle called Tori and Kyle to the hospital, where they learned about Noah's accident. Merle also mentioned that Brandon had come to their house before Noah's death. Kyle was convinced that Brandon was responsible. The next day, they confronted Brandon and informed him about his uncle's death in the accident. Kyle grew suspicious and accused Brandon of being present. Kyle got angry and tried to stop Brandon, but Brandon hid him in the closet. After a while, Kyle went to Brandon's room and found his t-shirt with blood on it. Suddenly, Brandon came out of the bathroom, and Kyle cleverly hid the t-shirt. He showed the t-shirt to Tori, but she refused to believe anything against her son. Meanwhile, the sheriff was reading the case files, attempting to find a link between them. The next day, Kyle took Brandon on a hunt again. After he left, the sheriff went to meet Tori and showed her the drawings on the road, asking her some questions. But Tori clearly stated that she didn't know anything about them. Once the sheriff left, Tori went to Brandon's room and opened his notebook, where she saw the same drawings repeated again and again. He had also drawn pictures of all the people he had killed and written about his plans to take over the world. In the jungle, Kyle instructed Brandon to move forward and took the opportunity to shoot at him. However, the bullet hit Brandon's head, causing him to fall down. Is he Shaktamayan's son? After this, Kyle tried to locate Brandon, but Brandon flew away at high speed, moving here and there. After a while, Brandon stood in front of Kyle, wearing a scary red mask on his face. Kyle attempted to apologize, but Brandon ignored him and shot a laser through his eyes. Tori tried to call Kyle, but Brandon answered the phone and declared that he had killed Kyle. He added that he would come home. Hearing this, Tori became very scared and attempted to escape from home. However, Brandon quickly flew away from home at high speed. Tori called the police while hiding under a table, and as soon as they received the news, the sheriff arrived with his team to save her. But before they could take any action, Brandon arrived swiftly and killed the sheriff with one shot. Following this, Tori ran upstairs and a deputy officer tried to call for backup. But then the deputy officer saw Brandon standing in front of him, and he too was killed with one shot. Tori realized that she wouldn't be able to escape if she stayed at home. She decided to jump from a height and run away. She left the house and went to the spaceship in the garage, recalling that Brandon had been injured by a part of the spaceship before. She found that part, hid it in her pocket, and then approached Brandon, trying to reason with him and distract him. However, as she attempted to attack, Brandon grabbed her hand and threw the spaceship part away. Brandon was furious after being betrayed by his mother, and he lifted Tori and carried her into the air. Reaching a great height, he threw Tori down, killing her. The next scene showed Brandon standing in front of a flying spaceship. The following day, some parts of the ship were found near Tori and Kyle's house. A news reporter stated that due to a technical error, a spaceship crashed into their house at night, resulting in the death of a married couple named Tori and Kyle. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.